The recitation with slides you are about to witness was performed around Australia 130 years ago, just before the first motion picture films began to be projected. Although Jane Conquest is a religious story, audiences at the time were most impressed by the realistic manner of its thrilling scenes. Newspapers reported that they listened with breathless attention as through well-managed pieces of mechanism and by sheer force of imagination, it transplanted them to the lifelike scenes represented. It brought forth bursts of enthusiastic applause and left indelible impressions on their minds. To recapture some of the original force of those first performances, we have supplemented the original 16 slides with additional slides from the period. "'Twas about the time of Christmas, and many years ago, when the sky was black with wrath and wrack, and the earth was white with snow. When loudly rang the tumult of winds and waves at strife, in her home, by the sea, with her child on her knee, sat Harry Conquest's wife. Her husband had gone on the waters, she knew not where. For never a lip could tell of the ship to lighten her heart's despair. The night grew deeper and deeper, and the storm had a stronger will, and buried in deep and dreamless sleep lay the hamlet under the hill. And her child was dying, the pulse in the tiny wrist was all but still, and the brow was chill and pale as the white sea mist. Jane Conquest's heart was hopeless. She could only weep and pray that the shepherd mild would take the child painlessly away. And the fire was dead on the hearthstone within Jane Conquest's room, and still sat she with her child on her knee at prayer amid the gloom. When borne above the tempest, a sound fell on her ear, thrilling her through, for well she knew 'twas a voice of mortal fear. And a light leapt in at the lattice, sudden and swift and red, crimsoning all the cottage wall and the floor and the roof overhead. It shone with a radiant glory on the face of the dying child, like a fair first ray of the shadowless day of the land of the undefiled. And it lit up the mother's features with a glow so strange and new that the white despair that had gathered there seemed changed to hope's own hue. For one brief moment, heedless of the child upon her knee, With the frenzied start of a frightened heart, up to her feet rose she. And through the quaint old casement she looked upon the sea. Thank God that the sight she saw that night so rare a sight should be. Hemmed in by hungry billows whose madness foamed at lip, half a mile from the shore, or hardly more, she saw a gallant ship. A flame from deck to topmast, a flame from stern to stern, for there seemed no speck on all the wreck where the fierce fire did not burn. And the night was like a sunset, and the sea like a sea of blood, and the rocks and the shore were bathed all over as by some gory flood. She looked and looked till the terror crept cold through every limb. Her breath came quick, and her heart turned sick, and her sight grew dizzy and dim. And her lips had lost their utterance. Though she strove, she could not speak, for her feeling found no channel of sound in prayer, or sob, or shriek. Silent, she stood all rigid, with her child to her bosom pressed, like a woman of stone with stiff arms thrown round a stone babe at breast. Till once more the cry of anguish thrilled through the tempest strife, and it stirred again in her heart and brain the active thinking life. And the light of an inspiration leapt to her brightened eye, and on lip and brow was written now a purpose pure and high. Swiftly she turned, and softly she crossed the chamber floor, and faltering not, in his little cot she laid the child she bore. And then with a holy impulse she sank to her knees and made a lowly prayer in the silence there. And this was the prayer she prayed. Lo, my child is dying, and vain is all my care, and my burden's weight is very great, yea, greater than I can bear. And Lord, thou knowest what peril doth threat these poor men's lives. I, a lone woman, most weak and human, plead for their waiting wives. Thou canst not let them perish. Up, Lord, in thy strength, and save from the scorching breath of this terrible death on the cruel winter wave. Take thou my child and watch it, no care is like to thine, and let thy power in this perilous hour supply what lack is mine. Aye, pray, good woman, send up prayer with fervour from your breast. For whilst your child, your suffering child, yields to unquiet rest, your husband too, amidst his toil, prays on the scorching deck that heaven will save his comrades brave from sea and burning wreck. And so her prayer she ended, and rising to her feet, turned one fond look on the silent nook where the child's faint pulses beat, and then with softest footsteps retrod the chamber floor, and noiselessly groped for the latch she opened and crossed the cottage door. The snow lay deep and drifted as far as sight could reach, save where alone the dank weed strewn mapped out the sloping beach. But whether 'twas land or ocean or rock or sand or snow or sky overhead, on all was shed the same fierce fatal glow. Still through the tempest bravely Jane Conquest fought her way, by snowy deep and slippery steep to where the old church lay. And she gained it, pale and breathless and weary and sore and faint, but with soul possessed with the strength and zest and ardour of a saint. Silent and weird and lonely, amid its countless graves, stood the old grey church on its tall rock perch, secure from the flood's great waves. And beneath its sacred shadow lay the hamlet safe and still. For however the sea and the wind might be, 'twas quiet under the hill. Jane Conquest reached the churchyard and stood by the old church door. But the oak was tough and had bolts enough, and her strength was frail and poor. So she crept through a narrow window and climbed the belfry stair, and grasped the rope, sole cord of hope for the mariners in despair. And the wild wind helped her bravely, and she wrought with an earnest will, and the clamorous bell spake out right well to the hamlet under the hill. And it roused the slumbering fishes, nor its warning task gave over, till 100 fleet and eager feet were hurrying to the shore. And then it ceased its ringing, for Jane's work was done, and many a boat that was now afloat showed others' work was begun. And the lifeboat, amidst the breakers with a brave and gallant few, overcame each check and reached the wreck and saved the hapless crew. But the ringer in the belfry lay motionless and cold, with the cord of hope, the church bell rope, still in her frozen hold. Saved from the wreck with feeble step, his strength well nigh outspent, with weary pace and pallid face, with clothes all scorched and rent, poor Harry Conquest seeks his home and gains his cottage door. But nor light nor faces bright to welcome him once more. The fire is dead upon the hearth, gloom reigns on every side, and all is chill and drear and still, save for the roaring tide. Within the silent, darkened room, trembling, he gazes round, and then, with sense of dread suspense, sinks fainting on the ground. Meanwhile, the caretaker, curious, has climbed the belfry stair. And oh, the fright when cold and white he finds Jane lying there. With kindly aid, the old man leads the wanderer home again, the home she left with heart bereft of hope and wrung with pain. With feeble hand the latch is raised, and by the lantern's light, to their amaze, attracts the gaze an unexpected sight. Upon the ground, exhausted, rests with face all pale and wan, with sailor's dress in deep distress, a faint and haggard man. 'Tis Harry Conquest, long time mourned, saved in that fearful hour, by his wife's brave deed and trust in need in heaven's all-gracious power. But soft, the mother's joy is brief, the child lays in its bed. The child she left of hope bereft, 'twas dying, is it dead? But who shall tell heaven's marvellous love to those who do its will? The suffering child, her darling child, whom Jane had left so ill, is found within its little cot in quiet slumber laid, and a peaceful smile on its lips the while, and the wasting sickness stayed. And this is the Christmas story that still the children tell, of the fearful sight that winter night and the ringing of the bell.